and welcome. My name is Paul Dervan. I'm delighted to have been invited by the Base Enterprise Centre to share some thoughts and insights with you on the subject of adapting to change. First, I would like to share a little of my own background. I recently retired from my role as a business studies lecturer at TU Dublin Blanchardstown, having reached retirement age. I had worked there part-time and full-time since 2003. Before taking up a full-time teaching role, I'd worked at Aircom as a senior manager in a variety of roles covering business management, marketing, and IT operations. In 2010, I left Aircom and set up a training business before taking up a full-time teaching role in 2011. So in a working career spanning nearly 47 years, I've initiated change as a manager and experienced change as an individual and as an employee. A wise man once said, "It's not the most intelligent nor the strongest that will survive. It is those who can adapt." This statement is true of organizations as it is of people. One only need look at the natural world to witness the veracity of the statement. Creatures have learned to inhabit the most inhospitable parts of our planet by adapting to their conditions. So the challenge for us as individuals and as collectives of individuals, in other words, organizations, is to be able to adapt to our environment. As you are all business owners, the primary thrust of this session centers on organizational change to facilitate adaptation. However, as organizations are populated by people, I've included some material dealing with change at the individual level. The intent for this video, therefore, dealing with change, is that you will get some insights and techniques that will allow you as a business owner to adapt as an individual and to manage change within your business. I want to begin the session by setting the scene in a business context, highlighting the need for organizations to adapt. I'll then explore what might be in scope for organizations to allow them to adapt to their organizations, to their environments, and we'll look at some examples. I will also explore change in the individual before finishing by looking at two approaches to change that I found really useful in my career. The final slide in this video contains a list of some resources that you may find helpful when thinking about change at both the individual and organizational level. The need for organizations to be able to adapt has been made, but it's useful, I think, to look at what are the drivers of change. The biggest event in all our lives now is COVID. And so we've seen thousands of citizens and workers having to adapt by working or studying from home. But other forces are more subtle and impact over even longer timeframes. Take technology, for example. Many businesses and jobs are being impacted by automation and artificial intelligence. The implications are that many service and admin roles will be supplanted by technology and robots, making these workers redundant in the same way as the Coopers of old. Technology has also made businesses more efficient by enabling involvement of the customer in the transaction process. Look, for example, at the revenue commissioners, whereby taxpayers can do their tax returns online. And look how easy it is to be able to book a plane ticket using your phone. It is useful for the business owner to be able to look at these forces in a systematic way. And so we can group them using the mnemonic PESTEL: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental forces. Scanning these forces regularly and systematically will allow the business owner to identify opportunities and threats. The challenge then is for the business owner to figure out what adaptation may be necessary to exploit opportunities and or overcome threats. It is instructive to look at some companies that fail to do this. You may not recognize all of these brands, but you will certainly recognize Kodak. The inventors of photography back in the 19th century. Interestingly, one of their scientists invented a 2-megapixel camera in 1975. The company failed to embrace the technology, however, believing that they were in the business of high-quality chemical-based photography. But not so with the Japanese. They embraced digital photography, and companies such as Canon and Nikon came to dominate the industry. In the early 2000s, BlackBerry was the leading messaging device worldwide. However, they failed to take account of the impact of the smartphone, and now they are only a minor player in the communications industry. Digital Equipment Corporation was a very successful computer manufacturer up to the 1980s. IBM, however, invented a PC in the late 1970s, and using Microsoft's operating system software, initiated the era of personal computing. Digital Equipment Corporation failed to grasp the significance of this, and eventually Digital Equipment Corporation ended up being taken over by one of the Japanese PC manufacturers. TWA was once the biggest airline in the world. It failed for a different reason. To pay down debt, it sold its valuable routes to London, which eventually resulted in going bust. Aside from these specific examples, there is a generic challenge for all businesses, and that's to understand what business it is in. In other words, to understand what problem it is solving for its customers. With this in mind, it's useful to reflect on the fact that the canal owners of old never became owners of railways because they saw themselves being in the canal business, when in reality they were in the transportation business. Likewise, Hollywood nearly failed because saw itself being in the film business, when in reality it was in the entertainment business, which is larger than just films. To finish off the point, it's not improbable that the manufacturers of drills and drill bits of today will at some point in the future become the manufacturers of lasers, because really when you think about it, they're in the business of creating holes. As a business owner, it's useful for you, I think, to ponder, what business are you in? What problems are you solving for your customers? Failing to adapt does not occur instantaneously, as the diagram shows. Subtle environmental changes may occur if the business organization fails to keep pace. When this happens, a gap may open up between the organization's pace of change and the environmental pace of change. Management tiers refer to this as strategic drift, which you can see indicated on the right-hand side of the diagram. It arises because the organization has failed to stay in line with its environment. Once the gap is opened significantly, the organization will fail unless it undergoes transformational change. Coca-Cola is a good example of an organization that has managed to keep pace with its environment. Consumer and medical concerns about the level of sugar in its core products required the company to produce alternative versions of them that had reduced or eliminated sugar. Closer to home, the Rye Valley Brewing Company produces a range of craft beers, which before COVID-19 were distributed mainly through pubs, which are now shut. With pubs closed, the company is now focusing on supermarkets as an alternative distribution channel. As mentioned previously, organizations are collectives of people who have or should have a common purpose. So when organizations need to adapt, there may be an impact on people. A personal story comes to mind. I was one of 100 senior managers called to a meeting by a newly appointed CEO. During the meeting, he told us that this time next year, 50% of us would not be employed by the company. And he provided the insight that change is all right as long as it's happening to somebody else, which certainly has a ring of truth about it. I recall the uncertainty and anxiety that this provoked in me at the time. I was also conscious that the forthcoming change would impact me personally as an individual, but also as a manager and leader within the organization with responsibility for people. As a business owner, these dual roles may also be relevant to you when dealing with others who are impacted by change. You should appreciate that not everybody is comfortable with it. Being open, positive, and supportive of others is really important. And also thinking yes, if, not no, because, when confronting problems. Thinking yes, if, or thinking yes, if we can do this, or I can do this, allows us to focus on identifying solutions. Whereas thinking no, because I can't do this, or we can't do this, allows us to drift towards making excuses. At the individual level, we need to be open to change and to seek the opportunities that may come with change. I also urge individuals to control the controllables. Everyone can control their breathing, their thoughts, and their techniques. Positive thinking, appreciating one's blessings, and taking care of one's body and mind can be most beneficial in dealing with change, particularly when it is imposed or arrives unexpectedly. As a business owner who is thinking about the need to adapt, you may find it useful to think in terms of a three-stage model or process. The first thing to do is to scan the environment. This could involve reading industry reports, government, EU, and World Economic Forum reports relevant to your industry. Also speaking with your customers and suppliers. The second step is to analyze and interpret this data to make sense of it. This should prompt thinking about two key questions for you. Are there opportunities or threats relevant to my business? What are the strengths and or weaknesses that are inherent in my business that could allow me to exploit opportunities or which could impede my ability to survive given emerging trends? The third step requires thinking about what changes may be necessary to adapt. It is useful to think of your organization as a system that has inputs, outputs, and transformation processes when considering changes that may be necessary in order for you to adapt. The diagram shows this approach to thinking about your organization. Let's take some examples. Organizations will usually have a stated vision, purpose, and goals. Nokia started as a forestry business in Finland. This forestry business required extensive radio communication to control operations in the forests. And so it diversified into mobile communications and in time became a world leader in the mobile phone business. Now looking at outputs and particularly products, Glanbia is primarily in the dairy business, but now it has a range of sports nutrition products. Looking at processes, Ryanair installed a small convex mirror in each of its overhead baggage compartments so that aircrew could quickly see that all compartments were empty after passengers had left the aircraft. This small change supports process efficiency, which in turn supports reduction in turnaround times. Many businesses are now realizing that they may not need to have the same number of premises as they had given the arrival of COVID-19. We have demonstrated collectively that we can work and study from home. And so the task for you as a business owner is, having identified opportunities and threats, is to use this systems view of the organization creatively in order to identify areas in which you can adapt your business to an ever-changing environment. At this stage, perhaps, you may have identified changes you wish to make. And I want to share two approaches from a management theorist called Kurt Lewin, which I have personally found very useful. The first of Lewin's approaches is shown on the top of the slide, and it's referred to as the unfreeze, change, and refreeze model. Let's assume, as a business owner, you want to deliver exceptional levels of customer service as a differentiator for your business. Lewin suggests unfreezing the current state. This includes identifying and melting any factors that are impeding delivery of exceptional customer service in this specific example. Perhaps poor staff attitudes or skill levels are contributory factors. These Issues need to be changed, perhaps by recruiting new staff and/or upskilling existing staff. The third step of refreezing is achieved by solidifying the change. In the customer service example, this might include providing a bonus to staff based on customer service targets or some other recognition scheme that promotes repeat behavior, which will drive sustainable, superior customer service. The second of Lewin's approaches is shown at the bottom of the slide, and it's referred to as force field analysis. A practical example will best illustrate the concept. Suppose, for example, you as a business owner wish to attract a major high-profile customer to do business with you. The acquisition of this customer represents a change. Lewin suggests you consider two sets of forces represented by the arrows in the diagram. One, forces that help you. These might include your reputation, stock levels, or after-sales support. And a second set of forces that might hinder you from getting this customer. Maybe your customer service is on the weak side. Lewin suggests that you focus on strengthening the forces that help you and eliminating or weakening the effect of those forces that are hindering you. While the concept is a simple one, its application can be powerful in helping you to bring about successful change. You can see that the arrows representing the forces are of different sizes. This represents your judgment of the relative strength of these forces following consideration of them. To conclude, there are some takeaways from this short session on adapting to change. I want to thank you for watching the video, and I do hope you found it beneficial. If you have any comments or questions relating to the content of this video, my email is listed at the bottom of this slide. Finally, here are some resources you may find useful. You may wish to take a picture of them to allow you to access them at a later stage. Thank you for watching the video, and best of luck with your business in the future.